All right, well, welcome everyone to Harvard's Creative Writing and Literature Student Society. This is Literary Hour with me, Carly-Rae, where we chat all things literary process. Today we have neighborhood literary founder and agent Eric Smith here joining us. He's an award-winning young adult author and literary agent. He's worked with numerous New York Times bestselling authors across all genres and has over 15 years of experience in the publishing industry. So, welcome, Eric. I'm so excited to have you on Literary Hour. Tell everyone where you're joining us from with your beautiful rainbow bookshelf.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm joining you all from sunny Philadelphia. Yeah, I've been a agent and publishing person working out of this area for, oh my God, 15 years now? Like what is
Yeah.
time even? But yeah.
Yeah. Now you're not just a literary agent at Neighborhood Literary, you're the founder. So share with us a little
Yes.
more about your new agency.
Yeah. So the agency has sort of been founded on the principle of social media being terrible these days. It's getting harder and harder to connect with a writing community online the way you used to. Back on, oh goodness, back in like the heyday of Twitter and like when Facebook felt a little more friendly, like it was really, really easy to connect with your writer friends and your community. And it's not really like that anymore. Everyone's sort of abandoning Twitter. It's just not a great place. So I've been seeing this return to, sort of like IRL community sort of building when it comes to writing, when it comes to creatives. And I thought, why can't an agency do that as well? So that's what Neighborhood Literary is about. Even though we represent authors from all over, the agents are responsible for fostering their writing community right in their backyards. So here in Philly, we're doing events every month. We run a Discord for almost 1,000 writers for free. We host a book crawl throughout the entire city that engages 50 bookstores. It's a whole community building endeavor. If we're gonna benefit from writers, maybe we should give back to them too. So that's the spirit of what we're doing.
Yeah. So, what inspired you after all this time in the publishing world to branch out? Was it seeing that you wanted to foster that sort of more intimate community? Was it
Yeah.
scary for you to take that leap?
Yes. Yeah. It was definitely a desire to do more locally. And yeah, no, I mean it's always scary when you leave any job, you know? Yeah, I used to work at a publishing house before I made the leap to become an agent at PS. And I was at PS for a decade and I love all of my colleagues madly. So it was kind of bittersweet and sad to leave because I'm not in the Slack channel with them all day anymore. So I kind of miss that.
Now, on your website, and as you mentioned, you do say that you actively engage with writing communities in your hometown. So, do you guys meet like every month with you and your agents to figure out like different events to foster the local writing groups? Are you actively doing even more?
So that's more just emailing. I just email my colleagues and say, "Hey, what do you want to do?" But yeah, it's a lot of email. Like the bookstores that I'm working with, all of that. It's just a quick little, "Hey, I want to do a thing. Like, are you interested?" And everyone's always interested to have more people come through.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Now, Neighborhood Literary, for those of you who don't know, is a boutique agency, and you currently, Eric, have two other agents, an associate agent and a literary assistant. Do you
Yes.
ever see the agency expanding, or do you want to always keep it tight knit?
Oh, I mean, eventually, sure. Like I would love to find an agent who specializes in like representing illustrators. That would be amazing. But I think it'll be a little bit before we do that.
Yeah.
I need a good year of doing this first.
Yeah. Now you are currently open to queries. Tell us more about the genres that you're open to right now.
Yeah, I mean, I work on a little bit of everything. I work on a lot of middle grade and young adult books because that's also what I write. So I'm very passionate about that particular space. Um, could pitch me any genre in those particular categories, and I love nonfiction for kids as well. I don't do picture books. Maybe one day. In the adult space, let's see. I really love like upmarket hard to explain fiction that has like a little bit of genre in it, like sprinkle a little bit of magic, sprinkle a little bit of sci-fi, maybe it's a romance novel, but there's a dragon in it, or there's a ghost, or just something weird and unconventional. Um, Let me see. I love my rom-coms, but I like it when they are sort of high concept and out of the box. And then in nonfiction, I like a little bit of everything. I work on memoir, essay collections, pop history, wellness books, a little across the board. I just like books that are weird. Like if I have to explain a book that I like, and it usually starts with me holding my hands up like this, and I'm just like, okay, stick with me here. That means it's going to be a good book for me.
Now, there is usually discussion on whether an agent is more editorial or not. How
Oh, yeah.
closely do you work with the authors? Like, do you only like super polished books or ones that need a little editing?
So it's a little bit of both for me. So like I like books to be really polished when they come my way, just because I don't have a ton of time to like sit down and developmental edit something for someone who I don't have a established relationship with yet, right? But for current clients, the authors who I'm like several books into their career with, they could send me something on a cocktail napkin, right? And I will dig into it and I will figure it out. So like clients that I'm already working with and actively working with, they could send me anything and we'll work on it together. But like new stuff that comes in, like I don't know you yet. Like I need it to be like good and ready to go.
Yeah. Now, did you always want to have a diverse portfolio when it came to the authors you represent, all in different genres?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Back when I worked when I worked in publishing at a publishing house, like I worked on everything from like cookbooks to picture books to like weird like gifty wellness books. Like I was all over the place and like getting my hands in all of that sort of colored what I wanted to do as an agent. So yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I've always wanted to be a little all over. Like there were some things I didn't initially want to work on. Like I wasn't super driven to work on middle grade books. But then a bunch of my clients started writing them, and I was like, okay, well, now I gotta read more of these. I gotta familiarize myself with the market, and then I ended up writing one. So like yeah, this is what happens.
I'm sure your kids appreciate the middle grade books. Now, another question I have is on the other agents in your agency, like they're also open to other genres. Can you share more about them to viewers?
Yeah, yeah. So Rebecca Podos, she's one of the agents that works with me. Oh my goodness, I've been friends with her for like well over a decade at this point. So it's really exciting that we get to work together now. She's mostly zeroed in on kids' books. So she works on a little bit of middle grade, a lot of young adult books, and then a lot of adult romance novels. So that's the sort of spot where she breaks off from her kids' books. Let's see, Donovan. He's like me where he likes to work on a little bit of everything, but his big passion is like mysteries, thrillers, like true crime-esque fiction, like domestic suspense. That's something me and Becca don't do at all, and I don't read any books like that at all. So he's the one to go to for that. And Sahara Clement, she's zeroed in on nonfiction. So she's doing like pop history, wellness, some memoir stuff, some essay collections. Yeah, she's just nonfiction like across the board.
Yeah. Well, let's shift and talk about the oh so dreaded, but also oh so essential to submitting any novel to an agent, the query.
Ah,
Can you
yes.
share more about what you look for in a query?
So I feel like I look for what every agent and like every editor and reader look for in a query letter, right? So like a really good query letter zeroes in on the character, the stakes, and why they can't walk away, right? Like that's every good piece of. I was gonna grab a book off my shelf, but like every good bit of jacket copy on every novel that's on your shelf, it says exactly that. Who's the character? What are the stakes? Why can't they walk away? If I don't get grounded in that in the pitch letter, it's probably not a book for me because I need to know all of those things. There's a writer named Jay Whistler. She writes kids' books who said stakes that a character can walk away from are stakes that your reader walks away from, right? So like I think about that all the time in my own writing. That's something you need to see in your own books. So we definitely want that across in the query letter. Like structure wise, there's an agent named Gordon Warnock who taught me that the best query letters are the same letter you would send to an editor as an agent, right? And those query letters zero in on the hook, the book, and the cook, right? So the hook is like that opening little line that says like my novel is titled X, is finished at X amount of words, is perfect for fans of author, and is a, genre category, right? So like my book, let me see, what's a book that I like on my shelf here? Oh, here we go. So like if I was pitching like Goodbye Days by Jeff Zentner, I'm not his agent. I'm just like a huge fanboy. I love all of Jeff's books. But like I would say like, like Jeff Zentner's Goodbye Days is a YA contemporary novel finished at this is probably like 90,000 words and is perfect for fans of like John Green and like Andrew Smith, right? And that's probably how I would pitch this book. Um, that's what we want to see as the hook there. Sometimes there's like a little one-line blip that tells us the plot or why they think we're the best fit for it, but that's what your opening hook is. The book, so hook, book, the book is the jacket copy. So the thing where you give us the stakes character and why they can't walk away. And then the cook is who you are, right? This is where you tell us a little something about you. So if you're writing fiction, like, oh, I finished my degree at this and that, or I've published short stories here and there. Or you just say something fun about yourself, like, oh, I work as a librarian and I like playing video games on the weekend, right? Like you don't have to like dig too deep there. If you're writing nonfiction, so my nonfiction friends here, the cook section is very important, right? This is where you tell us why you are the person to write this book. Right? Like, oh, my memoir is about X. I've written articles about this topic for this place, this place, this place. It's where you give us your platform, right? And you tell us like why you're the only person that could write it. Just to dispel any worries right there, when an agent says platform, we don't necessarily mean social media, right? Like I feel like people panic a lot when they hear that. Social media doesn't matter unless you're selling a book that relies on social media, right? If you're telling me, "Oh, I'm an influencer," and you have like 10 followers on Instagram, you're not an influencer, so don't do that. Um, but like, your platform could be all the places you've been published. It can be your education. It can be your career. It just tells us why you're the only person. That only really matters in nonfiction. Fiction doesn't matter. And that's it. That's what we like to see in the query letters. Hook, book, cook,
Yeah.
stakes, character, why they can't walk away. And for nonfiction, cook, hammer in that platform. It's super important.
Yeah. Now on comps, Eric, there's some people that say don't reference super popular books like, The Hunger Games if you're writing YA fantasy or Harry Potter. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, So popular books are fine as long as they're not like anomalies in publishing, right? So like you consider like the Hunger Games like an anomaly. Like it blew up all over the place. Um and like when someone tells me their book is perfect for someone who likes the Hunger Games, that doesn't really tell me anything, right? Because like everyone likes the Hunger Games. And also the Hunger Games is just full of tropes. There's just so many things you could potentially zero in on to say my book is kind of like this book. So it's okay to use a popular book, but not one that's like impossibly huge. Like right now, like I brought up Jeff Zentner when I took out his book. Like if someone uses The Serpent King as a comparative title, right? Like that's a book that won a bunch of awards, but it wasn't a giant New York Times bestseller. It's not, you don't see it absolutely everywhere all the time. I think you should because it's a perfect novel and I love it so much. But that would be an example of like popular book, but not an anomaly in publishing.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, what is one thing you dread seeing in a quarry? Like the a popular mistake, but like you're like, oh, not again.
Usually it's something that's the result of the writer maybe not having a critique group or maybe just not being familiar with the market. It's never anything like nefarious. Like it's not them, sending me my house address and saying, you better like my book. Like that's never what happens. It's usually like, my middle grade novel is finished at 200,000 words, or, my picture book about a 40-year-old man is perfect for readers of like I know that they don't know what the market is like or they haven't read like a book in that space in a really long time and that's not a bad thing. They just they're just not ready, right? That book's not ready for where they want it to be. Those are the things I dread because those are quick no's and like I respond to every query letter that I get. So like I usually tell those people like, hey, here's what you're doing wrong here. I hope this is helpful. Um, Usually they're not very receptive to that, but I try to help as much as I can.
Mhm.
Um, Other things, maybe when people write their query letter in like the voice of their character, like hi, agent, my name is whatever the character's name is, and I'm going to tell you about this adventure. I fell through a portal. Like I don't do that. Just because like you've spent so much time writing this book, that now you're going to try to write a pitch letter that you've spent maybe 2 weeks on in the voice of your character. Like I'm going to be judging the writing in the query letter like it's the writing in the book, and it's not going to be the same. So don't do that. Um, Let me see. And maybe don't get too personalized. Like I think personalizations are good. Like, hey, I know you worked on this book and that book, or hey, I saw you wrote an article about this and I feel like this book would be a good fit. Like that stuff is great. But like every now and again I get like a pitch letter that's like deeply personal where they're like, hey, like I scoured your Instagram and I saw you like corgis and I'm gonna pitch you this book when like my dog died like 5 years ago and like I hate when that happens. Like don't do that. Um like if it's something you can find on the agent's website where it says like I like X and Y, use that as the personalization. Don't feel like you need to turn into like a Lifetime movie internet stalker and like find every little bit.
Now shifting, is there one thing you love seeing in a quarry? What like instantly gets you excited?
Yeah, I mean, really, really good comparative titles are what grab me. Like I've requested books where the pitch letter wasn't necessarily that good, but the comp titles were so good it made me want to read the book. Yeah, like if you mention there are like books that will like summon me in like a cloud of smoke, like bringing up Nick Hornby or bringing up Jonathan Tropper or Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel or Good Morning Midnight, like certain books like I know that I'm gonna want to read whatever the person's working on. So like
Mhm.
really good comp titles, those are a good trick.
Mm. Now I am curious, how many quarries do you get a month?
Well, I mean, it's gonna vary month to month, I'm sure, but like the new agency was announced in the middle of March. We opened up the queries like March 23rd or so, and I've gotten over 1,000 in that time. So it's been a lot. I've responded to every single one, but it's a lot. I know my colleagues who just started have gotten, about like half of that, and I know when Rebecca opens to queries next week, it's gonna be a flood. So it's a lot, but we're here to work with writers. We read every single pitch.
Now, so once you get a quarry that you're excited about, Eric, do you reach out to the author, usually request a partial? Do you do a full? Does it depend?
It depends. Usually I'm just asking for the full book. Like, oh yeah, this sounds good. Let me take a look. Sometimes if I'm worried there might be something like fundamentally wrong with the book, like they didn't give me enough in the query letter to really know, I'll ask for a synopsis. Um, but that's rare. That's rare. That's usually like at a conference. Like if I'm getting pitched in person and they're not really getting the story out, I'll ask for the synopsis. But yeah, generally it's just the whole book.
Yeah. Now, with so many manuscripts to read and only so many days, how do you approach a new project when reading it the first time? Do you look at like characters
Ooh.
or the arc, world building?
I mean, I think the first thing I look for is voice out of the gate. And I know you hear people talk about voice a lot, probably like everyone that's here right now, but like voice is that kind of nebulous thing that is the result of all the reading and writing you've done over the course of your writing career, right? And it's what you've honed and spent all this time working on. So, oh, hold on, I think someone's trying to run upstairs again. Not right now, buddy. Is he going into his room? He's going into his room. Okay. Um, so so like a good example of this is like I request a YA novel from somebody. Within like the first like 10 pages, I can tell if they have the right voice or not for YA, right? Or for middle grade. If the book starts off and it's just like I'm a teen and you don't understand the young people. Like, I know you don't respect your audience. Like, I know you probably haven't read a YA novel in a very long time. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I zero in on pretty quickly. Um, Let me see. Voice. I mean, that's the big one, you know? And like by the end of like if I get like 10% of the way into the book, which is like that's like my judge there. Like I always get 10% of the way into every book, even if I know it's not right for me. Um, like if I don't know like who the character is, like what some of their personal stakes are, um, that usually means it's not right for me. And I say personal stakes because I feel like there's this bad advice that floats around on the internet, especially on TikTok, where people say like the the inciting incident needs to happen in the first page or the first 10 pages. And anyone that's read a novel in their life knows that that's not true, right? Like that's not how books work. Most of these that doesn't happen in any of them. But I need to see some personal stakes, right? Like by the end of chapter 1, things should be getting a little more difficult in some way for the character, right? Like maybe it's a big apocalyptic end of the world novel, and by the end of chapter 1, you find out like, oh, this person is going through a breakup, or oh, this person might lose their job. We don't see the asteroid until chapter 3, and that's perfectly fine, right? But like we need some stakes to start peppering in.
Yeah, inciting incident is a big thing. Like, should I put it on page one or is it okay to have it later? So there is a lot of misconceptions.
Yes, definitely later.
Yeah.
I mean, I've written a bunch of books, and none of them have an inciting incident in on page 1. That just doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah. Now after you read the submission, Eric, and you're like, oh yes, I love this project. Now, do you set up a meeting with the potential new author you're going to sign? Do you go over notes? How does that process work?
Yeah, generally we have a phone call. Sometimes I'll email them and say like, hey, I really love the book. Like, here are all the things that I think need work. Like, just a quick little bullet point list. Like, if you agree with this, let's have a phone call. Sometimes they agree. Sometimes they're like, oh no, that's not the vision for my book, and that's okay. That's fine. We all move on. But then if they do agree, like, yeah, we hop on the phone, we talk, we see if I'm a good fit, if they're a good fit for me, and then hopefully off we go.
Mhm. Now, one question I do want to talk about is about the submission process. So some new writers think, oh, as soon as I get an agent, I'm going to get it published by Random House. How does the whole submission process work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies. It's a thing that varies agent to agent. Like some agents operate differently. For me, like I generally put together a pitch list that I share with my clients, and I say, here are all the publishers I want to go to. Here are the editors. Here are the reasons why I'm going to these editors. Here are the places I still have to research. Let me know if you have any thoughts. Um, Sometimes they'll chime in and they'll tell me like, hey, I want to be pitched here, 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 or I talked to this editor once. I think they might really like my work. Should we pitch them? Like I try to make it a little bit collaborative. And then off we go. I write these really lovely pitch letters where I hype up the book and I talk about why they're important. I put together pitch packets that detail the author and their bio and why they wrote the book and what the market is like. Um, and some books get scooped up in a couple days. Some books take 2 years. It is a uh, there's no one like firm like it happens this fast, happens that fast. Um, and then the book comes out when it comes out. But yeah, it varies person to person.
Now, do you ever go on submission with like two books from a client, or do you just do the first one they submitted to you?
So it depends. So like I have a lot of clients who write in a bunch of different categories, right? Like if any of you ever look up MK England, I think they are a perfect example. Like MK writes adult romance, YA novels, middle grade, contemporary trilogies, picture book. Like they write stuff all over the place. So like I'll go out and I'll shop around. Like an adult spicy romance while also sending around like a middle grade trilogy while also kicking around like a picture book project. So like something like that, sure. But if it's the same kind of book in the same kind of space, like somebody is writing two YA novels or something, then no. Then it's
Yeah.
just the one thing.
hmm Now, you are also a writer, Eric. So you've been in your client's shoes before. How does
I
that
do, I
wisdom
dabble.
Yeah. Well, how does that wisdom of like knowing the process help you guide your clients?
Oh, guide my clients. Oh, I mean, that
Mhm.
helps a lot. I thought you were asking like, how does it help me? And I was like, oh, it doesn't. I'm a disaster, and I don't listen to myself, and I should listen to myself, but I don't. Um, No, it helps a lot when I'm guiding my clients. Like I'm very familiar with what publicity looks like, what marketing looks like, what it should look like, when it's not doing well, and what they should be doing. Like I'm familiar with putting book events together, what a book tour looks like. Like I've had my own contracts for my own book, so I can certainly compare what I have versus what my clients are getting. It helps a lot, and like I feel like at least I hope that I bring that like extra level of empathy to the table where like, okay, this book's not doing great. I understand how you feel. This book sold so badly and I wrote it. Like I can understand that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Now, how do you write, Eric, while having to read so many pitches? Do you have like a certain
Oof.
day where you'll write, or how do you balance that like mentally?
I mean, not well, but like I used to, my routine used to be every Friday. Like Friday was my day. I would go to the coffee shop, I'd write all day. But then it turns out launching a literary agency is a lot of work. So Fridays have kind of taken a back seat. Now I try to get out like for an hour or two on like Sunday or Saturday to sort of fuss around with stuff. I'm kind of lucky right now. Like my middle grade that comes out in 2027 is written already and done, and I sent it to my editor. So I kind of have nothing to do until I get edits back on that, which I won't for like probably a year. So now I'm just writing whatever I feel like it for fun. So there's no
Yeah.
there's no pressure right now, which is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Now, do you outline, Eric, or do you write when
Oh,
something
yes.
sparks? Yes.
No, no, I am an outliner. I write a giant synopsis. It infuriates my friends because, like, whenever I have a book idea, I write a whole synopsis for it. So it's usually like 10 pages, and I'll say, like, hey, I have a new idea. Does anyone want to take a look? No one wants to take a look because new idea means Eric wrote 10 pages explaining what the whole book is. Um, but the upside of that is like every single novel I've written, and a lot of my friends hate me for this, I've written in like between like 2 weeks to 2 months, depending on the book. Like, don't read the comments. I wrote in 10 days. I went on a writing retreat, sat down with my synopsis, wrote it in 10 days. It was terrible, when I first wrote it because it was a rough draft, but like zero drafting like that and just like getting the story out. I think that's what makes it easier to like work in the industry while also writing because you can get the story out, you can tool around with it when you have time. It's not like I'm like actively writing a whole bunch.
Yeah. Now, for you personally as a writer, do you like the drafting phase or like the editing phase?
I like the editing phase a lot
Yeah.
better. Particularly when like a book of mine is sold because like I find that every editor I've ever worked with has been infinitely smarter than I am. And like they've all just made my book so much better. Like yeah, like every book I've written, all of my editors have made them better. And that's what an editor is there for. An editor is there to help you tell the best version of your story, even if you don't know what that version is. And I've been very lucky.
Yeah. Now, was writing something you always wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, like I was one of those like little kids with a typewriter at home, like typing up little stories and bringing them to school and giving them to my friends. It was all very embarrassing. But yeah, no, that was it. I wanted to be a writer. I went to college for playwriting, so I was a theater and playwriting major for a while, and then I had a teacher give me some tough love who was just like, Eric, you hate being in all the plays. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't like it. He's like, but you want to write? I was like, yes. He's like, go be an English major. What are you doing? Because in this at this particular school, you had to audition for the plays if you were a theater major, even if you didn't want to be in them. And I kept getting cast in them as like little roles, and I hated it. I hated it so much. And like other theater kids all didn't like me because I was getting parts and they weren't. So it was a whole thing. Um, so yeah, he was like, go be an English major. I went to another I transferred schools. He like fixed my life. It was wonderful. And these days that same professor, he is almost always playing a villain on like Law and Order SVU or like or he was on a couple episodes of The Good Wife. Yeah, yeah, he's always playing like a rapist or something. It's horrible. Uh but like my wife loves Law and Order SVU, so every now and again like I hear her watching TV and I'm like, "Oh, I think that's Rich." And I'll walk downstairs and there's my old professor on TV being a monster. And it's great.
Well, what ended up like how did you transition into agent after, going from playwriting to English? I know you were in the publishing industry
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah, yeah, no, so I worked in publishing for a while. I kept trying to find an editorial job. That's what I wanted to do. But those jobs are far and in between here in Philly. Like there's three big publishing houses and they're small. And there's a bunch of academic presses, which I'm not right for. And it just wasn't really happening. So agenting seemed like the best next option if I didn't want to move to New York, which I did not want to do. Um, and that was that, like an agency, PS Literary, gave me a shot and they trained me up and they were wonderful and amazing. And now here I am. I try not to tell my clients that. Like, I don't want them to know that like this job choice is like my silver medal. But I do love it quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I do want to talk about social media. I know you mentioned,
Yeah,
a lot of writers, especially with book talk, they think, oh my gosh, I need this huge following if I'm going to agent. And you say like, that's a misconception.
huge misconception. Yeah, I mean, like I have clients that are, high school teachers and can't really be super active on social media and like have 500 followers on Instagram and their books sold just fine. So like, please don't worry about it. I mean, like for every gigantic, massive, like viral TikTok book deal story, there are like hundreds of books that are selling that you don't have that for, right? So like, no, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Now you also have your own website, Eric, and there is a blog on there. Are
Oh
you,
yeah.
do you like send out newsletters, encourage people to go on there and read?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I have a newsletter. Like I only have like 2,000 subscribers. It's not very big. Like yeah, I don't really rely on social media as much as I used to. Like I had a huge Twitter following, but Twitter sucks now and is kind of useless. Um, like I'm trying to build myself up on Blue Sky and like Threads and everything, but I don't know. I've been burned, by Twitter falling apart. So like I'll post on there like once a day or post like a book thing or a tip or like a joke, and then I just ignore it all day. So you'll all be fine if you don't have a big following someplace.
Yeah. Now you do also attend conferences where authors can chat with you. Do you have any new ones coming up?
Oh, there's a Philadelphia one at the end of the month. I recommend everyone look up Writers' Day workshops. It's a pretty cheap conference. I think they're usually like $200 to go. They're run by these guys, Chuck and Brian, and they basically tour all over the country. And they're really great. They bring in a lot of agents, a lot of editors, a lot of brain picks and talks. I mean, there's probably one near all of you in the very near future. I'm doing the Muse in the Marketplace, which has gone online, but I'll be doing that in May. If any of you ever get a chance to do anything with Grub Street, I highly recommend it. They're such great people. Oh my God. I think those are the only ones I have because I'm having a baby in August, so I have basically said no to every conference after that. Like I am not leaving my house. I'll be zeroed in on dad mode.
Yeah. Now, if you had to pick your favorite part of the literary world, what would it be?
Favorite part of the literary world? Hmm, that's a hard one. It's probably going to conferences and giving talks and stuff, like as much as I like my own book events and stuff like that, like I love showing other people how to get there, like that brings me a lot of joy because publishing is it's very inaccessible. It's very hard to understand how everything works. Like I remember when I first got hired at that publishing house, like it blew my mind to find out that not every book in the bookstore is a big best-selling book and that like
Mm.
not every author writes full time. Like I had no idea. I thought like you sold a book and that was it. You went and bought a giant house and that was what your life was like. And I wish there was more information out there So like being able to go to conferences and give talks and like dispel bad advice and like help people figure out how to navigate things. I don't know. I love that part.
Yeah. Or the misconception that the book you buy is that first draft that you write. It goes through a lot of
Yes.
process. Yeah. Now, do you have a least favorite part, Eric, or is it the inaccessibility for writers to know about the industry?
I mean, yeah, it's that, but also probably just like saying no to people. You know, like I hate sending rejection emails. I hate like when I've requested a book and I've read like a good chunk of it and I'm just like, I like this a lot, but I don't know how to sell it. I don't know where it would go. I don't know who the editors are. Because so much of agenting is also about like building relationships with editors. There are some editors who I've had like a dozen books with, and like I've been invited to their weddings, and like I know them very, very well. And then there are some editors who like I've never talked to before, and they've never responded to a single email from me. So like if I don't have that connection, I don't know who that person is for the book. Usually I have to pass, and like that's usually a hard thing to say to someone.
Yeah. Now, before we take audience questions, share with everyone where they can find you if you are on social media or if you prefer your website.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could find like I have a personal website, ericsmithrocks.com, where like you can find query letter tips and all kinds of other resources that are all out there for free. You can look up my agency, it's neighborhoodliterary.com, where you can look up the other agents, you can see what our submission guidelines are like, all of that. And you know, if you don't write this down. I am very Googleable. You'll find me pretty quickly. I'm the literary agent. I'm not the murderer, and I'm not the football player. So just it's just Eric Smith rocks the agent. So yeah, that's where you can find me. It's that same username on Blue Sky and Threads and Instagram, though. My Instagram's not very branded. It's like you'll see pictures of my kid, and you'll also see pictures of book stuff. So
But you don't need to stalk Eric to quarry him.
you do not.
All right, so if anybody has a question, they want to raise their hand, we do have the ones in the chat, but if you want to ask yours, feel free to jump in and raise your hand. Um, I know one question we have for you, Eric, is do you think there's still a place for novellas or if they're really just to pad out established series?
I mean, they're hard. I usually tell people who want to write novellas to look at the authors who you're a fan of that have been writing those novellas and see where they're being published, right? So, like, if you go to Tor.com, there are so many authors publishing novellas on there pretty regularly. Um, Murderbot started out as a novella, and it's a perfect book series. You can look at places like Lightspeed. You can look at places like Locus. Like there are lots of spots that will regularly show off novellas and whatnot. So like do that little bit of research. You'll find where they can go. But there's still a place for them. You just have to look a little harder.
Candy?
Yes, hi. I was just wondering how you present a book that might fall into a couple of different genres or crosses genre boundaries, unlike the query letter. You know, do I need to know like a secret handshake?
So you would just describe it as genre blending. Like my novel is a genre blending and then whatever the main genre is, sort of book. So like my novel is a genre blending piece of literary fiction, or my novel is a sci-fi novel with fantasy elements. Like you can bring up a couple of things, but just make sure you hit us with the main genre as well. I work on a lot of those books. Like I work with this one writer, Mike Chen, who like specifically writes like genre blending sci-fi. But we always say like, this is a family saga that happens to have UFO an alien kidnapping. Like we zero in on what the core thing is before giving the blend.
Adam?
Hi. Yeah. So just real quick, I had a situation where I wrote a book, a fantasy book, and I sold it to a small independent publishing company like right before COVID, and they put it out, and then like 9 months later, because of COVID, they ended up going like out of business, and
Ah,
so so I got my rights back and everything, and but we were just about to put out the sequel, so I went to like Reddit and everything, and they were just like, because it was out and it wasn't out that long and it didn't sell too many copies because it was only out a couple months before they went under. You should probably just self-publish because it's the whole, the second book, the first book, it's kind of tainted by that what happened. And I was just wondering if that was, that's what I ended up doing. I ended up self-publishing, but
Okay.
it's Reddit. So I was wondering if that was actually good advice or not.
I mean, if it was already published, it would be probably a little bit difficult to get another agent to scoop it up and sell it someplace. But I always tell everybody like there's no such thing as book jail, right? So like nothing bad happens if you decide to try something that someone might say no to, right? So like I don't know if you've self-published it and you feel like, I still feel like this could have traditional publishing potential. Like there's nothing wrong with firing it over to agents and giving it a shot.
Thank you.
Oh, Adam, we have a second Adam. Sorry, I was muted. There.
Hi. First off, I wanted to say thanks about your beautiful note about wanting to hear adoptee stories and novels from actual adoptees. It's a form of identity that's invisible, and I feel that it's very underrepresented. So that was really beautiful to see.
No, it's big point of frustration for me. I get it.
Yeah, fellow adoptees. So yep. uh, my second question was. So I really loved your 3-question framework for pitching fiction. Do you have a similar way of thinking for pitching nonfiction?
I mean, I think it works the same way, like especially if we're talking like a memoir or something, right? Like it's still very much like here's the hook. The book jacket copy still has to give us what the story is, right? Because like every memoir has a core story behind it. It's not just here's a bullet point of my life, right? It's usually a contained moment. And then the cook is basically the same thing, where it's here's why I'm the person to write the book, which I know sounds very silly when you're talking about memoir and saying like, why do you have to tell me why I'm the person to write about myself, right? But like most memoirs zeroes in on a specific topic that that person's an expert in. Like a good example, I worked on this one memoir called Blind Man's Bluff by a guy named James Tate Hill, and it's all about how he pretended he could see for 20 years. He's a blind writer. He tried to fake being sighted for a very long time. It did not go well. That's why the memoir is very funny. It's very like a joyful disability memoir. But he'd written about disability and blindness for so many places. He'd written about it everywhere. So like his cook section, even though it was a memoir, even though it was about him, he told me why he was the person to write it because here are all the places I've written about blindness, not just my memoir here. So like I would hammer that home too.
Thank you.
No, no problem.
Gwen?
Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for presenting today. This has been phenomenal to listen to you.
My
Um,
pleasure.
a couple of questions. How long does it take to receive a response from a query letter? I sent one about a month ago, I think, and I'm neurodivergent and also am the daughter of Indiana's former largest cocaine dealer who was finally arrested after 25 years. And I'm also a trafficked survivor of child sex trafficking. And I'm leading a team of Harvard students. We are compiling a book of short stories written by trafficked people for trafficked people. So I'm curious if you handle anything of that nature, but also just curious also about how long it takes to get a response from the query letter. And is there such thing as writing too personal of a query letter that is a turnoff?
No, I mean, I think when you're dealing with nonfiction, like there's no such thing as getting too personal about yourself, because like that's what it's about, right? So I think you're fine there. In terms of how long it takes to hear back, that's going to vary agent to agent. Like their submission guidelines will generally say it. Like on my agency, like I'm 6 to 8 weeks, but like my colleague Rebecca, I think is yeah, for Rebecca, if you don't hear back, it's just a no, right? So some agents are like that. Some agents have a timeline. So yeah, I would just look at the submission guidelines there. And as for pitching like a collection like that, that's a little hard because that's an anthology basically. Uh, yeah, I mean, I guess when I look at like anthologies or short story collections or essay collections that do this kind of thing, usually in the pitch letter, I like to see like, here's the hook, here's a little bit about the book, and here's like a smattering of the stories I'm going to get, right? So like you'd say something like, title by so and so is a story about, and you give me a one-liner, and then title by, and like have a little bullet point list like that. That's what most anthologies tend to look like. Trying to find one. They do that on the jacket copy. Um, yeah, like the jacket copy will definitely like break down like here, two teens take the stage and find their voices. A girl learns about her heritage and begins to find her community. A sister is haunted by the ghosts of loved ones lost. Like we get that sort of bullet point list. That's usually what helps.
And then I assume you want two separate query letters, and two separate submissions for the different books.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would pitch one thing at a time though, right? So like if a I find people run into this problem a lot where they're like trying to pitch multiple projects, and an agent who's very career focused is going to be like, okay, I like this book, but I don't like these other two, so I'm going to pass because I want to focus on their career. So I would pitch one at a time and have that second book be a problem for future you, right? That's something to worry about later. Zero in on one book at a time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Kelly?
Hey, Eric, thank you so much for being here with us. This has been awesome. So I have sort of like a future trending question that can be
Okay.
sort of hot to spot the trends and readerships that are going to become the next big thing. And so I was just curious if you have, read the tea leaves and kind of make predictions about what you think is up and coming.
I mean, usually editors tell us that, right? Like an editor will email and say like, "Hey, I'm trying to find X and Y." Um, because like depending on what the category is, like sometimes adult books inform the kidlit market, sometimes the kidlit market informs the adult market, sometimes Hollywood informs what's happening in books. Like right now, every editor I know is asking for, I can't believe I'm going to use this word. They're asking for muscly soaps, right? So like Yellowstone, the TV show, is a soap opera with muscles, and that's how they refer to it. They call it a muscly soap. So everyone wants that as a book, and I haven't really seen anyone sell one yet, even though that show's been on a very long time. Uh, Let me see. Horror is sort of the like evergreen trending book. Like people have been hungry for it for a very long time, and like for kids, for adults. And I would argue that I don't think the demand is ever going to go down because the supply tends to not go up. Like horror, I think is the hardest thing to write. Like it's I don't know how people do it. It's wildly impossible in my head. Um, and to do it really well, I think requires like a wild amount of extra talent. So like I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. Like romantasy is currently the big one. Everyone's looking for it. It's still selling really well. Um, High concept romantic comedy. Rom-coms are still very huge, but people need things that feel very, very different from what's on the market because it's very oversaturated. I mean, those are the big ones. I think the one upward trend I'm seeing right now is in nonfiction with they call it memoir plus. So it's like a memoir that also blends like wellness stuff or like advice or teaches you something. Makes it sound like a video game, calling it Memoir Plus, but like that's one of the things I think we're gonna see a lot more of.
Now, Catherine had a chat for you in the chat, Eric. She says, how does one approach a literary agent or form a relationship?
Yeah, I mean, you just send an email. That's it. Like a vast amount of my clients came from just cold query emails. Like they ship me an email to pitch me their book, and that is that. Some people connect with agents at conferences, which is fine, but like remember, pitching agents is always free. Like in 10 years of being an agent, I think I've signed maybe two clients as a result of a referral where like another author I'm friends with was like, hey, you should really check out this book. It's by one of my friends. This. Um, yeah, James Tate Hill, the Blind Man's Bluff guy, was a referral. And a book called The Unmothers by a woman named Leslie Anderson was also a referral. And that's it. And that's in 10 years. So like query letters, that's the way to go. it's not a business about who you know. Like I think sometimes there's this misconstrued idea that like you have to know somebody to get in. You don't. It's just a query letter. We're all in the same playing field. My books, the ones that I write, get rejected just as much as everybody else. Even though like I've written a bunch already and I represent all these people and I know every editor. I feel that just makes it easier for them to say no because they're like, oh, I know this guy. No, we're not going to read this. So yeah, it's not who you know.
Yeah. And then on queries, then Czar says, how long can the query be? Do you have anywhere
Ooh.
you recommend looking at that?
You know, I see a lot of this is another one of those like beware the TikTok advice because I see
I
a lot of
know.
people that say like your query letter can only be 300 words, but that's nonsense. Like if you look at my website and the query letters I have there, some of them are way longer. Like some of them are like 1,000 words. So like if you need to say a lot to get your book across, that's fine. If you need to like say a lot to get your bio across, that's fine.
Yeah.
I would say try to keep that book section like 3 paragraphs, right? Because that is what you see on every jacket copy. It's usually 3 paragraphs, sometimes 4, and you'll be fine. Like don't stress about the word count too much.
And then Natalie asked in the chat, do you have any suggestions on writing a criminal character when you are so repulsed by them?
Ooh. How do you write somebody that you dislike? Oh, I mean that's hard. I mean I usually tell my clients and myself when I'm writing bad guys that I dislike. Um, to try to make them feel as real as possible. Just because it can be very easy to fall into that trap of making them like a mustache twirly sort of caricature of a villain, and like no one believes those characters, no one likes them. Um, you have to give them motivation that makes us believe why they think they're right when it comes to what they're doing. And I think a great example of this is like look at the villains in like Marvel movies versus the villains in DC movies, right? Like the Marvel villains almost always are very layered and have very complicated reasons for doing what they're doing. The villains in DC movies, it's always just because, right? Like they're just doing it just because. Um, like you want your villain or your bad guy or your criminal to have like reasons that make them think they're the good guy. And sometimes that makes them more fun to write because like, like, oh, all right, maybe they're right about something, like see what it is you can zero in on.
Mhm. And then Greg asked, how famous do you have to be to start writing a memoir?
You don't have to be famous. Every memoir I've worked on, none of them were famous. So don't worry about that.
Now, did anybody else have any other questions they want to ask? We have, okay, yeah, I saw your hand up, Adam.
Hi again. I saw on your website that you're interested in books on like pop culture history. Do you have any interest in Dungeons and Dragons or
So
TTRPGs?
I have a book that just came out. It's a YA novel called Roll for Love, and it's about 2 teenagers who their characters start falling in love in a D&D game, and they start to wonder, are we falling in love in real life? So yes, D&D and like all those RPGs have a big, big piece of my heart. So,
Got a query letter coming your way.
yeah, excellent.
Adam, yeah, Adam.
Yeah, this is just something that I noticed a while back when I was reading, maybe like a year or two ago. I was reading a bunch of books, and they just happened to be kind of younger adult, oriented books. And a lot of them happen to have really, really short chapters. Like I'd read 4 chapters, but it probably was like, it should have been 1 or 2 chapters from like a traditional structure standpoint. But I think it was that way to kind of get you through the book quicker. And I was just wondering if it's something you'd noticed happening a lot more as well.
It depends on the books for sure. Like I know in my own YA novels, I write very long chapters because I have a lot to say. But like this book that I just held up, like the chapters are it's like 5 pages, 10 pages. Like YA just tends to be faster paced because like the stakes tend to be very immediate for the kids because that's what it's like being a kid. Like everything feels like it's the end of the world when it's probably not. Um, so yeah, that is a thing that happens.
Now, I know we are at time, Eric, but one quick question Jason had was any advice for writers who are filmmakers? How best to work with agents when your ambition is to translate the published work into film? Do you
Ooh.
currently work on any of that, Eric?
I do, I do. I think the best approach is to just pitch your book and worry about the film stuff later. If someone sends me a query and they're like, "Hey, this is my debut novel, et cetera," I expect to be able to develop this for film and yada yada yada. A big part of our job is managing expectations, and that is something I cannot promise. No agent can promise that kind of thing. It all depends on people being actually interested in doing the adaptation and the like. So I would focus on the book, and then like when the book is sold and maybe gearing up to be published, that's when you have that conversation. You say, "Hey, I'd love to talk to a film and TV agent. How can we facilitate this?" And your agent will do that. Like I have a film and TV agent, like most of my clients do, and you introduce those people into your client's life when the book is out and about.
Mhm. Well, there you have it. Thank you, Eric. Is there anything else you want to say before we let you go?
Oh boy. I mean, publishing is such like a industry of having patience, right? So just like take your time, don't try to rush it. It might take you a year to find that agent once you start querying. It might take you 10 days, and that would be amazing. And I hope that's what happens for you. But yeah, take your time, don't rush things. If your book sells tomorrow, it won't come out for 2 years, right? So there's no point in like trying to hurry things along. And yeah, turn to your community that you're building in this space right now because it's going to make the whole experience a lot better.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining Literary Hour, Eric, and thank you for everyone who came and that will be watching. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.